My wife systematically drained our joint account of $250, $0, and forged my signature to buy her parents' house, then suddenly filed for divorce claiming I was mentally unstable. Now we're headed to court over assets I never knew she secretly acquired. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the guy to get like this, but here I am, staring at my life crumbling in ways I never saw coming. It all started with little signs, small things I brushed off at first. My wife, Lisa, always been a bit of a drama queen, but lately she was acting even more distant, secretive. She'd hide her phone, get defensive if I asked where she was going, and suddenly her weekends were filled with girls' trips that turned out to be something else entirely. The first real clue was when I noticed the bank statements. I'd been working long hours trying to keep things afloat, but something was off. Our joint account, which used to be a steady $5, $0 a month for bills, was suddenly draining fast. I checked the online banking one night and saw a huge withdrawal, $250, gone in one shot. I froze. That kind of money just doesn't disappear without a trace. I called the bank, but they told me the withdrawal was made with my signature. My signature, forged. That's when I realized Lisa had been lying to me about everything. I started digging deeper, and that's when I found the real shocker. She bought her parents' house, an expensive property, using the money she drained from our account. She forged my signature on the papers, claimed I was okay with it, and even lied about having my approval. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My wife, who always pretended to be the loving, honest partner, was secretly stealing our savings and doing major real estate deals behind my back. I felt like I'd been hit by a truck. It all came crashing down in a matter of days. I confronted her, of course. I remember standing there furious, trying to keep my voice steady, asking how she could do this, how she could betray me like this. She looked me right in the eye and lied, told me she'd only been borrowing money, that it was for some emergency she never told me about. She said I was overreacting, that I was paranoid, that she loved me but had to do what she did because I was supportive enough. That's when I realized how deep her lies went. She had this bitchy, dismissive attitude, like I was nothing, like I deserved to be cheated on and robbed. The emotional impact hit me hard. I felt sick, betrayed, humiliated. I'd given her everything, my time, my love, my trust, and she turned around and stabbed me in the back with her lies and her affair. I'd always suspected she was cheating, but seeing the evidence, knowing she'd been lying about everything, made it all real. I couldn't sleep at night. I kept replaying all the moments I missed, all the times I thought she was just stressed or tired, but really she was sneaking around, sneaking men into her life. What made it worse was the way she reacted when I found out. Instead of being remorseful, she got defensive, accused me of being paranoid, said I was crazy for accusing her of anything. She insisted she'd only been talking to some guy, that it was just sex, nothing serious, but I knew better. I saw the texts, the late-night calls, the secret meetings. It was obvious she'd been cheating on me for months. All the while she was pretending to be the perfect wife, the devoted mother to our kids, while secretly planning her getaway. And then came the part that made my blood boil, her lies about the money. She told me she'd been investing it, that she was trying to build a future for us. Yeah, right. She drained our account, forged my signature, bought her parents' house, and then had the nerve to say I was the crazy one. I felt completely lost. I didn't know what to believe anymore. Was I just a fool for trusting her? Or was she a master manipulator hiding her true colors all along? That's when I decided I had to do something. I couldn't let her get away with this. Not just the financial betrayal, but the fact that she'd been sleeping around, lying, and turning my life into a mess. I started gathering evidence, bank records, messages, everything I could find. I contacted a lawyer and I knew I had to fight back. But honestly, I was angry, hurt, and confused. How could someone I loved so much turn into this person? How could she lie so effortlessly, cheat so brazenly, then turn around and blame me for being mentally unstable when I finally confronted her? This was just the beginning. I knew I had to plan my next move carefully, but I also knew I couldn't stay silent anymore. I'd been played, used, and robbed. And now I was determined to take back control of my life, no matter what it took. After I uncovered everything, the forged signatures, the secret property purchase, the draining of our joint account, I felt like I'd been hit by a freight train. The betrayal cut so deep I didn't even know where to start. I had to process it all, but first, I needed to get my head straight and figure out my next move. The thing that burned me the most was how easily she lied, how she played the victim when I confronted her, acting innocent when she'd been the one scheming behind my back. I started by digging through all our financial records, bank statements, emails, texts, anything I could get my hands on. I wanted proof, concrete evidence of her deception. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about understanding how far she'd gone. I found receipts showing large cash withdrawals, emails where she was talking about her plans, and text messages with her parents discussing the property deal. I also hired a private investigator just to confirm what I already suspected. Lisa had been sneaking around, sleeping with some guy she met at work. Her phone was full of flirtatious messages, late-night calls, and even explicit photos. The more I learned, the more furious I became. How could she do this to me? How could she betray everything we built? I kept replaying our wedding vows, the promises she made, and how she'd turned her back on all of it. I'd been a good husband, working hard, trying to give her the best life, and she repaid me with lies, theft, and a secret affair. It felt like my entire world was collapsing. I was left with nothing but questions and a burning desire for justice. When I finally confronted her again, I was ready. I told her I knew everything, the forgery, the property, the money, and that I'd be taking legal action. Her reaction was classic Lisa. She threw a tantrum, called me crazy, said I was accusing her for no reason and that I was just jealous. She even had the nerve to cry, pretending to be the victim. She spun stories about how she was only trying to save us, how she was doing what she thought was best, and how I was mentally unstable for doubting her. It was sickening. Her bitchy attitude, the way she dismissed me as if I was some idiot, made my blood boil. I felt a cocktail of emotions: anger, sadness, disgust. The betrayal was so profound I questioned everything I thought I knew about her. Was she always this manipulative? Was our entire marriage a lie? I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I was so blind. It hurt to realize I'd been nothing but a pawn in her game. And the worst part, she kept lying, kept denying, even when I had proof. It was like talking to a wall, except I knew she was just trying to spin her web of deception around me. That night I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, replaying everything. The money she drained, the house she bought with it, her secret meetings, the lies. I felt humiliated and angry, angry at her for doing this, angry at myself for trusting her, and angry that I was now fighting for what should have been ours. I knew I had to act fast. I contacted a lawyer, explained everything, and started preparing for a long legal battle. I wasn't just fighting for the money. I was fighting for my dignity, my sanity, and the truth. In the days that followed, I felt a strange mixture of relief and dread. Relief that I finally knew the truth, but dread knowing how messy this was going to get. Lisa kept up her act, playing the innocent victim, crying about how I was ruining her life, how she loved me but was just trying to help her family. She lied constantly, trying to turn everyone against me, making it seem like I was some paranoid, jealous husband. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I'd seen too much. I'd read the messages, seen the bank statements, and heard the stories from her family. She was caught and she knew it. Now I was just waiting for the court dates, trying to stay strong. The hardest part was knowing that she'd been living this double life, tearing us apart from the inside. I'd always thought we had a solid marriage, but now I saw it for what it really was: a fragile house of cards built on lies and betrayal. I knew this wasn't just about money. It was about respect, trust, and the fact that she'd used me and discarded me like trash. The emotional toll was enormous. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and angry, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I finally saw her for who she really was. I started to accept that maybe this was the end of the line for us. I couldn't fix what was broken, not after all she'd done. I had to start thinking about rebuilding my life, about how to move forward without her. So here I am, waiting for the next chapter to unfold. I've got the evidence, the lawyer, and a heart full of mixed feelings. Part of me still hopes for some kind of resolution. Maybe she'll face the consequences of her actions. But deep down, I know I have to prepare for the worst. This isn't just a fight over money or property. It's a fight for my dignity and my future. And I won't let her take that away from me without a fight. After I collected all the evidence, filed the necessary legal paperwork, and prepared myself for what I knew was going to be a brutal fight, I started to realize just how deep her lies went. Lisa was good at spinning stories, lying with a smile and pretending everything was fine. But I wasn't buying it anymore. Every new piece of evidence I uncovered just confirmed what I'd suspected all along. She'd been planning her escape from our life together for months, maybe longer. The first court hearing was a nightmare. Lisa showed up looking like she just stepped out of a magazine. Perfect hair, perfect makeup, the kind of fake smile that made me want to puke. She kept insisting she was the victim, that I was mentally unstable, and that her actions were for the good of the family. Her bitchy attitude was on full display, shooting sharp glances and dismissive smirks whenever I spoke. She tried to paint herself as some kind of misunderstood heroine, while I was just some jealous, unstable husband overreacting. But I had the proof. The forged signatures, the bank statements, the texts and emails, everything painted a different picture. I handed over the evidence to my lawyer, and during the hearing, I watched her face fall when the judge started asking her about the money she drained from our account. She fidgeted, lied, and tried to deny everything, but her stories didn't add up. Her excuses about investing in her parents' house and saving for the future sounded hollow. She even had the audacity to claim she was saving us from financial ruin, which made me laugh bitterly. The judge wasn't convinced by her act. He looked at her with a mix of skepticism and disappointment, and I could see the wheels turning in his head. When my lawyer presented the evidence, the room felt electric. I saw Lisa's face turn pale as the truth started to come out. Her secret dealings, her forged signatures, her lies about the money. She tried to deny everything, but it was clear she was panicking. Her bitchy facade cracked just a little, revealing the desperation underneath. That moment was a huge win for me, even if it was just the beginning of a long legal battle. But the real shock came when the court ordered her to disclose all assets. That's when I learned she'd managed to buy her parents' house and secretly hidden other properties. It was like peeling back layers of an onion, each revelation more disgusting than the last. She'd been secretly funneling money, lying about her income, and hiding assets from me for months. The betrayal was so complete I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. I felt like I'd been living in a fog, and now the truth was blinding. While all this was happening, Lisa kept insisting she loved me, that I was overreacting, and that this was all just a misunderstanding. She told the court she'd never stolen from us, never forged my signature, and that I was trying to ruin her. Her voice was sharp, bitchy, full of spite. She looked at me with this cold, calculating stare, like I was just some obstacle to her freedom. That moment made me realize how much she'd changed. She wasn't the woman I married. She was a manipulative, deceitful person who'd used me and then tried to destroy me. Emotionally, I was a mess. I felt betrayed, furious, and exhausted. I couldn't believe I'd trusted her for so long. I kept thinking about all the nights I'd come home, thinking she was just stressed or tired, when in reality she was sneaking around, lying to my face. Every memory now felt tainted. I wondered how I could have missed the signs, how I didn't see the cracks in our marriage. I felt so stupid for trusting her, for believing she was the woman I thought I knew. But I also knew I had to stay strong. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of the fight for what's rightfully mine. I'd spent years building our life together, and I wasn't about to let her walk away with everything, especially not after what she'd done. I looked at her in court, saw her bitchy smirk, and knew I'd have to be smarter, more strategic if I wanted to win this. I wasn't just fighting for money. I was fighting for my dignity, my sanity, and my future. In the days that followed, I focused on gathering even more proof. I hired a forensic accountant to trace her financial moves, and I worked with my lawyer to prepare for the upcoming hearings. I also started reaching out to friends and family, trying to get support. Most of them couldn't believe Lisa could be so ruthless, but I knew the truth. She'd been planning this for a long time. Every new revelation made me angrier, but it also made me more determined. I wasn't going to let her get away with this. Not without a fight. Now I'm just waiting for the next court date, trying to keep my emotions in check. I know she'll keep lying, trying to manipulate the system, but I've got enough evidence to expose her. All I want is justice. I want her to face the consequences of her actions, and for me to be able to start rebuilding my life. Because at the end of the day, I've realized that trust is gone, and I have to accept that some people are just good at lying and hiding their true selves. And I have to move on, even if it hurts like hell. The court battles dragged on, and each hearing seemed to peel back. Another layer of Lisa's deception. I think I've never felt so exhausted in my life, emotionally drained, physically tired, and constantly on edge. The worst part was watching her sit there, acting innocent and bitchy, like she hadn't just systematically drained our joint account, forged my signature, bought her parents a house, and secretly built this whole other life behind my back. She had this knack for twisting everything, making herself out to be the victim, accusing me of being paranoid or unstable whenever I brought up the evidence. One day, I remember sitting in the courtroom, listening to her try to deny everything again. Her voice was sharp, full of that condescending tone she always used when she thought she was winning. She insisted she only borrowed money, that her actions were for the good of the family, and that I was just jealous because I couldn't handle her success. She sneered at me when she said it, like I was some stupid husband who couldn't see her sacrifices. Honestly, it made my blood boil. I wanted to scream at her that she was a liar, that she'd been nothing but a thief and a manipulator. The judge, though, wasn't buying her act. He looked at her with clear skepticism and kept grilling her about the forged signatures and the hidden assets. I saw her squirm under the pressure, her bitchy facade cracking just a little. She knew she'd been caught, but her pride wouldn't let her admit it outright. Instead, she kept spinning stories, trying to shift blame onto me, claiming I'd been mentally unstable from the start. That's when I realized how deeply she'd convinced herself that she was the victim all along, when in reality, she'd been the one orchestrating everything. Meanwhile, I was feeling a mix of relief and rage. Relief that the court was starting to see through her lies, and rage that she'd managed to do all this without me noticing sooner. I kept thinking about all the nights I'd come home, thinking she was just tired or stressed, and now I knew she'd been sneaking around, sleeping with some guy she met at work. The betrayal cut so deep I couldn't breathe sometimes. How could I have been so blind? How did I miss the signs? I kept asking myself whether I was a fool for trusting her or if she was just that good at hiding her true self. What's worse, she kept trying to manipulate the court, throwing out tears, claiming she loved me, that she was only doing all this for us, and that I was crazy for accusing her. Her bitchy attitude was on full display, like she was the queen of the world, and I was just some pawn in her game. She looked at me with this sneering expression whenever like she was daring me to prove her wrong. It was infuriating. I couldn't stand how she was trying to paint herself as the victim when she was the one who'd been lying, stealing, and betraying. The most frustrating part was watching her try to hide her assets. She'd lied about how much money she had, what properties she owned, and how she'd managed to keep everything hidden from me. But thanks to the forensic accountant I hired, we uncovered bank accounts, offshore holdings, and even more properties she'd kept secret. It was like discovering a whole hidden world of lies she'd built around herself. Each new revelation made me angrier, but it also strengthened my resolve to fight for what's mine. I also started to get angry at myself for not noticing sooner. How could I have missed the warning signs? I'd been so focused on working, providing, and trying to keep everything together that I overlooked the subtle clues. Her secret meetings, the disappearing money, her sneaky phone calls, all right in front of me and I didn't see it. That realization haunted me. I felt like I'd been played for a fool, used and discarded. But I also knew I couldn't dwell on that now. I had to stay focused, keep gathering evidence, and prepare for the final showdown. One thing I've learned through all this is how good some people are at hiding their true selves. Lisa was a master manipulator. She knew exactly what to say, how to act, and when to lie. But now I see her for what she is. A selfish, bitchy woman who used her charm and lies to get what she wanted. And honestly, it made me sick to my stomach to realize how much I'd trusted her. That trust is gone now, replaced with anger and a deep sense of betrayal. So I'm here, waiting for the next court date, trying to stay level-headed. I know she'll keep spinning her lies, trying to manipulate the system, but I've got enough evidence to expose her. It's not just about the money anymore. It's about holding someone accountable for destroying what we had. I want her to face the consequences of her actions, and I want to start rebuilding my life without her. I've learned a lot in this process about trust, deception, and how to fight for yourself when everything's falling apart. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know I'll never let someone do this to me again. Never again. The final court hearing was a whirlwind. I'd spent months gathering every shred of evidence, and finally it all came to a head. Lisa sat there, still trying her best to act innocent, but her bitchy smirk was looking more strained than ever. She knew she was cornered, and I could see the panic in her eyes. The judge started asking questions about the assets, the money she drained, and her secret dealings. I felt a strange mix of relief and anger, relief that the truth was finally coming out, and anger that she'd put me through this hell. When my lawyer laid out the evidence, bank records, forged signatures, property deeds, Lisa's bitchy attitude cracked. She tried to deny everything, but the proof was irrefutable. She argued that she'd only been trying to do what's best for the family, that her actions were for our future, and that I was just a jealous, paranoid husband. Her voice was sharp and dismissive, like she couldn't believe I was calling her out on her lies. She even had the nerve to cry and accuse me of trying to ruin her, as if I was the villain in all of this. The judge wasn't buying her act. After a long, tense deliberation, he ordered her to disclose all her assets, including hidden accounts and properties. When the truth finally came out, it was worse than I imagined. She managed to buy her parents' house, an expensive property, using the stolen money, and she'd hidden other assets in offshore accounts. Each new revelation felt like a punch to the gut. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind, so trusting for so long. It was like discovering a different person, someone I didn't even recognize. Throughout the hearing, Lisa kept insisting she loved me, that she'd only been doing what she thought was best, and that I was overreacting. Her tone was bitchy and condescending, like she was trying to dismiss my feelings altogether. She threw in tears, trying to sway the judge, but her words rang hollow. I knew she'd been lying all along about everything. She'd used her charm, her manipulation, and her lies to cover her tracks, and now she was trying to spin her way out of it. In the aftermath, I felt a new wave of clarity. I'd fought hard and I'd won some battles, but I knew the war wasn't over. The judge had ordered her to pay back the stolen money, and I was already planning how to recover what I could. The emotional toll was still heavy. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and exhausted, but I also felt a strange sense of empowerment. For once, I was taking control. I'd been a victim, yes, but now I was fighting back. I started thinking about what's next. I knew I'd have to rebuild from scratch, emotionally and financially. I'd lost a lot: my trust, my marriage, my sense of security. But I also realized I was stronger than I thought. I'd learned to recognize the signs of manipulation, to stand up for myself, and to fight for what's right. I'd never let someone do this to me again. Never. The hardest part was accepting that I might never fully get over this betrayal. Lisa was a master at lying, and her bitchy attitude made her seem untouchable at times. But I also knew I couldn't keep living in anger and pain. I had to forgive myself for trusting her for so long, and I had to focus on moving forward. It's not about revenge anymore. It's about reclaiming my life and making sure I don't get manipulated again. Looking back, I realize how much I've grown through this ordeal. I've become more cautious, more aware, and more determined to protect myself. I still feel hurt, who wouldn't? But I also feel a sense of closure. Lisa's lies and betrayal showed me what true character looks like, and I refuse to let her define my future. I'll rebuild, I'll learn, and I'll move on. Because at the end of the day, I know now that trust is something you earn, not something you give blindly. And I'll never let someone take that away from me again. In the weeks following the court ruling, I felt a strange mixture of relief and emptiness. The legal battle was finally over, and I had some measure of justice. Lisa was ordered to return the stolen money, and her hidden assets were exposed, but the damage was done. I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd lost a part of myself, trust, innocence, or maybe just the naive belief that someone I loved could be truly honest. It's strange how life throws these curveballs when you least expect it, and how betrayal can leave scars that take a long time to heal. I started focusing on rebuilding my life slowly, cautiously. I cut ties with Lisa completely. I changed my phone number, moved out of the house, and started therapy to deal with the emotional fallout. I realized that I'd been codependent for so long, trying to make everything perfect, that I'd lost myself in the process. Now I was learning to prioritize my own well-being, to trust my instincts, and to be more vigilant about the people I let into my life. Looking back, I've learned some hard lessons about trust, manipulation, and the importance of paying attention to the small signs. Lisa's bitchy, manipulative attitude was a warning sign I ignored for too long. Her lies, her secret meetings, her secret bank accounts, they all added up to a picture I refused to see until it was too late. But I also learned that there's strength in facing the truth, no matter how ugly it is. I had to accept that I'd been betrayed, that my marriage was a lie, and that I had to move on without her. The biggest takeaway for me is that no matter how much you love someone, you have to be vigilant. People can hide their true selves behind a smile, behind lies, behind manipulative tactics. And when they do, the only way to protect yourself is to stay alert, to demand honesty, and to never ignore the red flags. I also learned that revenge isn't always about getting even. Sometimes it's about reclaiming your life, your dignity, and your peace of mind. I took back control, and that's what mattered most. Now I look at my future with cautious optimism. I still get angry sometimes when I think about everything I lost, but I also feel grateful for the lessons I've learned. I'm rebuilding my trust in myself, in my ability to spot deception, and in the idea that I deserve honesty and respect. It's not easy, and I know I'll carry scars for a while, but I refuse to let this define me. I am stronger than my pain, and I will move forward, better, wiser, and more cautious than ever before. To anyone out there going through something similar, I'd say this: trust your instincts, pay attention to the signs, and don't be afraid to fight for yourself. Sometimes the truth hurts, but it's better than living in a lie. Never let someone manipulate you into thinking you're crazy for seeing what's right in front of you. Stand your ground, gather your evidence, and fight for what's right. Because in the end, your peace of mind and your dignity are worth more than any lie or betrayal. And no matter how dark things seem, there's always a way to rebuild, if you're willing to face the truth and take control of your life.